Hello, and welcome to Law Talk. My name is John Celebrezze, and I'm the co-founder of the Celebrezze-Zangi Community Legal Education Project, as we call it, CZ-CLEP for short. Our organization provides continuing education about the judiciary and legislature to attorneys, judges, government officials, and the general public. As a career educator, I recognize early on how important legal matters are and how they impact our lives. I am the nephew of the late Anthony J. Celebrezze, who was the popular 5-term mayor of Cleveland and a member of President Kennedy's cabinets. As a tribute to his lifetime commitment to the legal process, we dedicate this show. Tim Young is the Ohio Public Defender. He received his undergraduate and law degrees from the University of Dayton. Before coming to the becoming state public defender, Tim served as deputy director of the Montgomery County Public Defender's Office. He has tried numerous cases throughout his career, ranging from misdemeanors to homicide. Tim has devoted his career to serving the indigent population of our society. Tim is here today to talk about an especially interesting program entitled the Wrongful Conviction Program his office has recently launched. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you very much for coming. Tim, we find this to be a real treat having you here today. I know you. Thank you for traveling up from Columbus. I know a lot of our viewers, I know everybody is interested in the newer variety of police stories dealing with DNA, and your wrongful conviction program actually falls right in that. The system apparently does malfunction, should I say, every now and then, and it's comforting to know that you're on it here, as far as hopefully somebody can be freed if it was improperly convicted. So the proper title is you actually titled it Wrongful Conviction Program?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start out, as you see, I wrote down some questions for you, as I usually do. Why did you decide to create the Wrongful Conviction Program? I mean, what was your motivation, Tim?
The biggest weakness in our justice system is the people. People err. And because of that, we ultimately are going to end up with errors in our system. And that means that there are going to be, to some small percentage, innocent people in prison, innocent people wrongly convicted. And it's hard to imagine something more horrible happening.
Yeah, I would say so.
Than sitting in prison knowing you didn't do it. Not that you didn't commit the crime you were accused of, or that you were the driver but not the guy who went in,
sure,
participating, but actually factually innocent. It's hard to imagine something more horrific happening in a person's life than sitting in a prison cell for something they had nothing to do with.
I see.
And we've learned over the years with the advent of DNA, and DNA is fairly exacting in terms of being able to prove whether somebody was or was not involved in a crime. We know without a doubt that there are innocent people in prison. That's what DNA has done for us. It has resulted in absolute exoneration without question in numerous cases.
I see. Well, Tim, I found out about your program, an article that was chronicled in the Plain Dealer. But have you had other bigger city newspapers take an interest?
Well, it was somewhat surprising when we announced the program that we were launching it. We had it in development for almost a year before we launched it to make sure that we were ready to analyze the cases properly.
Sure.
When we launched it, I was actually caught by surprise by how much national interest it did take. We heard from the New York Times,
really?
In fact, asking about interest in the project. And I think it's because it's a non-DNA project. You hear about the Innocence Project,
sure.
Barry Scheck in New York.
Right.
And a wonderful gentleman down in the University of Cincinnati, Professor Mark Godsey, is running the Ohio Innocence Project, a DNA-based exoneration project. But the non-DNA-based seem to really catch attention in a number of places around the country.
Well, why did you decide to focus on innocent claims that, this is exactly what we're talking about. You focused on innocent claims that don't have DNA availability.
not every case leaves behind physical evidence that has a biological aspect, whether it be saliva or blood. But what DNA has taught us, those cases where you do have the biological evidence, it's taught us what the mistakes are that led to that conviction. Because it's the DNA afterwards that we're finding out this wasn't the person who committed the rape, this wasn't the person who left behind a blood trail, but somebody identified them, or somebody made a mistake on comparing a fingerprint, or somebody on some other scientific as they call it, evidence, is brought forth. And the DNA exonerations have let us go back and review what went wrong in those cases. And it has led to an examination of the types of evidence that lead to wrongful convictions. And that means that in those cases that we know were wrong because of DNA, there have to be others that don't have DNA, that have the exact same types of mistakes being made that led to the ones that we know were exonerations. So there have to be other innocent people in prison, even though there isn't biological evidence. And those people need just as much help.
Sure. But I think what you're actually doing is you're going over and above, we're accepting DNA is here, now let's look at other factors that DNA pointed us in that direction. Is that what?
Absolutely. When you look at the DNA cases as a body of evidence, you can start to look at, well, what did get this person in prison? Before we had DNA and this person was put on trial, what led to their conviction? And one of the scariest factors is eyewitness identification. Somebody points at the person and says, you did it. That's the person. Do you see the person sitting in the courtroom? The
where our
classic
system
television.
works, yeah, right.
You see it in all the programs, and then do you see that person who committed this crime sitting here? And well, that's the man sitting there. And in 75% of the cases that DNA has exonerated somebody, there was a mistaken identification.
Wow.
People want to believe that the human mind is a photograph, like a camera, and it takes a photograph, and it doesn't. It's a wonderful pattern recognition object. It recognizes similar patterns.
Sure.
And that's the problem. It recognizes
similar patterns.
It doesn't do exactitude like a photograph does. It says similar. And all you need to do is think about sometime in your life you've come up behind somebody you saw on the street or you saw across a hallway, and somebody you know, a good friend, a family member, Aunt Jean or your friend Bob, and you're like, hey Bob, and you literally get within feet of them and they turn around and you're like, whoops, sorry, not the guy.
That's happened.
These are people you know.
Sure.
Think about identifying a complete stranger that you had moments of observation.
Sure, during a very stressful time.
As you go through photographs, the police procedure is to present you with 6 photographs that are all similar. Well, the brain is a pattern recognition object looking for similarities.
Sure.
So it picks out the person most similar to the one you remember. And over time, you become convinced that is the person who did it. And in the hundreds of cases that people have been released across this country, 75% involve somebody saying that's the person, and they were absolutely wrong.